The crazy item about today's animation, guys, it's animation weekend. Get yourself some of that nice cold cereal, brightly colored, preferred. We're talking cartoons, we're talking animation. It's a AKAPAD Film Buff podcast on the weekend. 1988 Superman TV series animation. I heard about this a lot. This was a series often referred to in American comic shops until it got released. It had this DVD release. It was a big deal. It really was. Ruby Spears, Superman. And since the DVD release, we haven't heard much about it. And we're in potentially this other golden age of Superman right now. Because the movie did very well. The movie did $22 million on previews. That's the James Gunn 2025 Superman. I saw it. We have a discussion of it a couple episodes ago. Please check that out. We got to talk about this series because I realized something within the very first episode. And this is a series created by and in collaboration with comic book industry legends. The best of the best worked on this. Let's go.
Quiet on the set.
Camera speed.
Sound production, take one.
Action!
Gil Kane. This is a comic book name. Gil Kane and Gene Colan are two names. Now, Gil Kane. I was just having a big discussion with Gil Kane with my buddy Mark from Awestruck Comics podcast. Go find them on YouTube. They'll be a part of the Wednesday hype videos we got coming. But Gil Kane is this individual within American comics, one of the top 10 illustrators. Mark and I argue that he did create the graphic novel. That's for a teaser. That's an upcoming YouTube video right there. But Gil Kane's the visual behind this. The two big writers that we have in, if you want to call it a story room, they're just writers. Chuck Dixon, aka Buzz Dixon, and the ever great Marv Wolfman. Marv Wolfman, probably top five comic book writers of all time. Warner Brothers was going through this resurgence. The way that they were looking at these characters coming into the mid 80s. They said we have to unify it. We just need like a clear timeline. And I think timeline was the buzzword because around this, we're talking, when I say around, parentheses, years around this, they published the history of the DC universe that just reestablished the timeline. This is almost like a public production Bible. This is a reference that anyone can use to figure out what was the order of all of these thousands of characters, all these amazing characters. What's the order of their timeline appearance? Doesn't mean comic book appearance. So that comes out. We get Crisis of Infinite Earths. And all of this is on the absolute shockwave. See, people will talk about Jaws and Star Wars being the blockbuster movies, but what about Superman? Where the character, by the time this movie comes out in the late 70s, the character was embedded in American culture. And this was a reintroduction of this idea. And they didn't change much. What they decided to put on screen, they just decided to make it better than anything you've ever seen. I think internally there was high benchmarks for the Richard Donner Superman movie. High benchmarks. So all of this bleeds into animation. So let me tell you about what was shocking when I went into the series. Because I heard about this series for my entire life. You always heard about the Ruby Spears Superman. But I want to say, during the DVD boom of the 2000s, everything got a box set. Every version of anything got released. Did they release the the full cut of Dune. They might have. I know I used to have the bootleg. I think that became the Sci-Fi Channel cut of Dune. David Lynch's Dune, by the way, guys. So this series drops. All 13 episodes drop. 2 DVDs. I don't know if it had supplemental features. I don't think so. It just came and went. And I think that satisfied the curiosity of a generation leading into this, because the Ruby Spears Superman was a staple on bootleg counters, bootleg stands, just bootleggers. You would go to a convention, a weird flea market, you would have to buy it. And this was a staple. And you might have to buy multiples because different guys had different versions of different copies, right? And then it came and went, and then the conversation about Ruby Spears Superman just went away. And who was Ruby Spears? If you watch Child's Play, the animated commercials in Child's Play, Ruby Spears eventually was absorbed by Warner Brothers. You cannot go to HBO Max now and get this series. It's shocking. You think the powers that be would realize its significance. So I'm watching this, and during this time, 88, 89, it's the Dark Knight, Batman, but they come up with this toy line by Toy Biz that was using similar molds and production process that the Kenner Superpowers line did. And the Toy Biz Superpowers, their version, I think it was called DC Heroes. Fact check me on that. It comes out and it's gold colored packaging. They echo something similar for the 89 Batman movie, which there were no action figure plans for that. But Kenner usually use some of these same molds for the Batman line. So the impact of the Superpowers line shockwaves right into the 90s. That's how you get bang for your buck. And in this toy line, we always had this design for Lex Luthor, and Lex Luthor had a kryptonite ring, and he came with a kryptonite ring. But he's like turtleneck Lex Luthor, like purple turtleneck, black suit. And I always wondered, like, where did this come from? Well, that action figure and even that ring comes from this series. I put the series on, and I get the Donner John Williams Superman music. And I realize that this is a spiritual connection, somewhat of a in-house sequel to these movies. It's an extension of these movies. So I go through everything in one night. I cannot stop watching this. The modeling, the model sheets, the characters, these are the DC heroes of the 80s. This is the revamped DC universe. Episode 8, The Birthday Party. We get Wonder Woman in this. And I love that we get Wonder Woman in this series before we get Batman. And you might say, look, we get Star Labs in here. And you might say, like, why is Wonder Woman in here, not the Dark Knight? Because Batmania didn't quite happen when this aired. And this failed, right? It failed. It should have continued, but everything becomes Batmania. Warner Brothers finally sees true dollar signs again. And all the toys, all the merchandise, all the animation, everything for the kids, everything for live action goes into Batman. So much so that by the time Superman Returns comes out, is compared to Batman. The animated series for Batman is so successful, they try a Superman animated series. Put the two together. That doesn't quite go well. The last time Superman is truly relevant, I think, in animation isn't until Justice League Unlimited, that, you guessed it, also stars Batman. So this is the last final attempt to make Superman appeal to an audience that can grow up with the character. And they cannot do that if this series fails, which it did. See, if this series was successful and the merchandise, and they bring back the Superman vitamins and peanut butter. You guys remember the Superman peanut butter? How about the bread, right? Wasn't there Superman Wonder Bread? And you see this push of the Dark Knight versus Superman. And you say to yourself, if this was successful, you would have had a generation that grew up with both characters, but it just didn't stick. There's just a lot of competition out there. I think this series is 100% commendable. I think this series is great. I think this series was worthy of all the conversations I heard about it in my, when I used to be a comic book shop kid. Wasn't much of one, but when I was there, I spent time in the shops. I loved going. But, it didn't become my life. And I give a lot of respect to this guy named Bill. We bring him up every now and again. Hall of Heroes, Voorhees, New Jersey. Bill would talk about this series, and he was correct. And I feel like I should have made a little bit more of an effort back then. Yeah, and I wish back then that I pursued tracking the series down a little bit further. But this is why we're thankful for these media pushes and these big movies, because I'm doing a deep dive on Superman that I never thought I had in me. This is one of the most delightful discoveries that I've had in recent years. Maybe as big as the Shazam live action TV series, when I discovered that for this podcast during the Shazam Fury of the Gods push that we were doing, promotion. Yeah, AKAPADers, you have to consider this is so much more of a what could have been scenario. And it should be available on Max, but there you go. Some general thoughts on Ruby Spears' Superman TV series.
Okay, that's a wrap.